a guide to mental and emotional wellness, biblical wisdom, practical principles, clinical insight, by me, Dr. Jennifer Lundgren. Chapter 1, Overview. I'll never forget the moment I made the decision to start taking better care of myself. It was August of 2019. It was the most important year of my position as a tenure-track faculty at Minnesota State University, Mankato. I was also working as a mental health therapist with a caseload of clients. At that particular time, I was anticipating returning to teaching full-time at the end of the month after being on maternity leave following the birth of my third baby. I sat in my living room and felt an overwhelming sense of anxiety and panic. I felt dread. How was I going to manage this? I had a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old, all who stayed at home. How could I do this? How could I be a wife, a mom, a professor, and a mental health therapist all at once? How could I serve those under my care with my whole self when I was stretched so thin? I felt like I was drowning. The harder I was struggling to get air, the faster I was sinking. I prayed to God in that moment to help me. I prayed for guidance and wisdom as I navigated my vocations. In that moment, I knew I had 2 options. One option was to do less. But the issue was that doing less didn't feel like an option to me. At home, I wanted to be fully present and an engaged mother to my young children. I wanted to be a supportive and encouraging wife to my husband. Professionally, I taught in a program that trained students to become counselors for people with addiction, a job that I consider to be life-saving work. As a therapist, I work with clients who struggled with mental health challenges. I cared deeply about their well-being and knew that stopping my work with them wasn't an option either. I realized I didn't want to live in survival mode, plagued by guilt and frustration and a constant feeling of missing out or not doing a good enough job. Living like that wasn't an option for me. I knew that there had to be a way where I could not just survive, but really thrive as I navigated my journey as a working mom. Doing less wasn't an option, so taking care of myself better became my only choice. Optimizing my sleep, my time, my relationships and support system, and my mental and emotional health was my route to getting out of survival mode and serving in my vocations to my fullest. That afternoon in August was a turning point for me. I continued praying. I started reading. I started listening to podcasts. I started sitting quietly and noticing my thought patterns. I started intentionally practicing gratitude. I started studying my emotions and sharing them. I started being intentional with my physical health. I began connecting with people with whom I wanted to deepen my relationships. As I practiced these strategies, I saw them beginning to work. My anxiety became manageable. I started to feel joy and excitement, and I started talking about what I was doing for my mental and emotional health. In October of 2019, I decided that I would like to teach other professionals all of these strategies of self-care. I also started teaching my students strategies of self-care, and in some classes began every class period by presenting a strategy and having my students discuss and practice it. I developed a training based on the personal work I was doing and entitled it Deconstructing Self-Care, Helping Professionals Thrive in a Weary World. I was set to present at a conference when the world was shut down because of a global pandemic. The conference was moved online. The number of attendees for that presentation was enormous because self-care and the weariness of the world had become a topic of interest like none other. Since that conference, I've been presenting on self-care, wellness, resiliency, mental health, crisis response, and anxiety for dozens of organizations and now thousands of people. It's my mission to share the strategies that are tried and true for me. These are not strategies that I've made up. They're from the Bible. God has outlined for us what we as Christians need to do to be mentally and emotionally well, and modern psychology has merely validated it. The way I see it, my biggest job as a mom, second only to feeding the faith life of my children, is to take care of myself. so I have the capacity to regulate my emotions and help them co-regulate theirs. Then every interaction, every response, every decision, and every conversation can be grounded in love, joy, humor, and wisdom instead of irritability, exhaustion, fear, and anger. If I can expand my own stress threshold and cope with the micro stress doses that life inevitably throws my way, I will help my kids develop the capacity not to eliminate stress in their lives, but to process it and cope with it. It's my spiritual and ethical responsibility to take care of myself as a Christian, because through Christ alone, I have a lot of work to do.
If you'd like to purchase your copy of Jenna's book, just go to the Time of Grace store or click the link in today's episode notes. Thanks for listening.